Trek Chatters. I'm Pit Trekkie, and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. So, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I hope you're wearing your green and having a good time today. Be safe as you're having fun. So the good thing about today, besides it being St. Patrick's Day, is a new episode of Star Trek Picard premiered today, episode 3 of season 2. But what I'm going to do in this episode is just kind of go over and do a review of the second episode of season 2 called Penance. So basically where this episode starts is where episode 1 left off. So Q is talking to Picard about this alternate reality, basically, that Picard has all of a sudden been swept into. Picard notices that Q seems to be a little unstable while he's talking about this. He tells Picard that this isn't really a lesson for Picard, him being in this alternate reality. It's a penance. But he didn't explain to Picard what that actually meant, even though Picard asked. Q also seemed to get very agitated when Picard was basically telling him off, saying, "I'm tired of your games." At one point, Q actually slaps Picard in the face and causes his nose to bleed, which is something very new for Q. So, not really sure what's happening with Q at this moment. Q takes Picard through his house and into, I guess, what is like a war room or a study that's got different weapons all over the place, and also a series of skulls that we find out are from different characters that we've seen throughout the Star Trek universe. I think specifically Deep Space Nine. We have Gul Dukat's skull in there, we've got General Martok, and I believe we also have Grand Nagus Zek, and there are a few other skulls in there too. I believe there's one of a Saurian, and there's also Sarek, Ambassador Sarek, actually, his skull's in there as well. So a nice little run around of the Star Trek universe there in that scene. One thing Q does say about Picard in this alternate reality, that it's actually Picard who caused this reality, not Q himself. Picard obviously assumed that it was Q who caused this to happen, but actually Q corrects him. But again, Q doesn't explain to Picard in what way Picard created or caused this. So after Q disembarks from the house, Picard finds out, he listens to General Picard talking about a safe galaxy is a human galaxy. It's all about humanity at this point and wiping out what they consider dangerous species. So kind of like what happened in episode 1, we kind of get a review of what the characters are all doing. So Q said that Picard was actually going to have help in this journey, trying to figure out what happened to time. And it led to this reality. So all of Picard's basic players come into the fold again. We get reintroduced to Seven of Nine, who is President Annika Hansen of the Confederation of Earth. She's married to the Magistrate of the Confederacy. And she's trying to she has no Borg implants involved. So in this timeline, apparently, she had never been assimilated by the Borg. We find that Rios is now Colonel Rios, and he's serving aboard the La Sirena in a fleet of ships very similar to La Sirena at the Vulcan front. There's a Vulcan war going on, and basically they bomb Vulcan at this point. Rios gets contacted by 7 and 9. They realize who they truly are, and that they're not talking to some alternate version of who they know. And on presidential authority, Rios gets sent back to Earth. We find that Elnor is with a group of Romulans on Earth. I guess these Romulans blew up a bunch of different buildings in Okinawa, and this female Romulan who was with him was saying basically it was done to avenge Kronos, Cardassia, Vulcan, and Romulus. There might have been another planet in there that I'm blanking on, but pretty much that was it. But Elnor ends up getting rescued by Raffi, who is actually like one of the leaders of the army, I guess you want to say, that's going after and attacking these dissidents. So she captures Elnor, but she says to the other shooters that she's going to keep him alive for questioning. Then we jump over to Dr. Jurati, who is in some sort of lab/jail cell. President Hansen comes in. She and Dr. Jurati finally realize that they can recognize each other. They have to cover a little bit because Dr. Jurati calls her Seven, and she had to cover because the husband was kind of like, why would you call her Seven? and they said about some sort of drinking game that they used to play in college at this point. We find out that there is a day, that day is actually something called Eradication Day. And for the Confederation of Earth, Eradication Day is where they publicly execute enemies of the Confederacy or alien influences. So we find out that the one who is to be executed today in this Eradication Day is actually a Borg Queen. What we find out is very interesting about the Borg Queen is that she notices that there's been a change in time. And 7 to 9 explains that she has some sort of trans-dimensional awareness, so she can kind of connect with the other queens in other timelines. So the Queen, even though she seems very confused and distraught, is able to recognize those changes. She also recognizes that Aunt President Hansen is actually 7 to 9 tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. She also refers to Dr. Girardi as I believe it was some sort of like a delicate or fragile teacup who does not really experiences unbelonging, and that really, no matter where she's at. And that seems typical for her in all different timelines. That seemed to hit Dr. Girardi pretty hard. Anyway, through different circumstances, Rios and 7 to 9 and Dr. Girardi and Picard, they all make contact. Raffi and Elnor. They manage to get to Dr. Girardi's lab. They see the Borg Queen. Obviously, Picard understands that the same thing the 7 to 9 does, that the Queen has that trans-dimensional awareness, and he questions her about what had gone on in the time frame. Picard had figured out right before this time that it wasn't actually an alternate reality they were in, it was their reality, but that something had to have changed to cause it to happen. So when they meet with the Borg Queen, Picard asks her what happened, and she's able to determine that there was just one minor change in time, and that it actually happened in the year 2024 in Los Angeles. So they all realize, the crew realizes that they need to go into the past, but they don't know how to do it. It's suggested about possibly using the Slingshot Effect by Captain Picard, or Admiral Picard, saying that Kirk's Enterprise had done that before. The 7 to 9 said that they had Spock to kind of do the calculations. Well, Picard says they have the Borg Queen. So they realize that they have to kidnap the Borg Queen and take her to the La Sirena so that they can do a time warp back to 2024. At this point, the magistrate comes into the office and basically said it's time now for the Eradication Day Ceremony, which is where General Picard is supposed to publicly execute the Borg Queen in front of a crazed mob. So there also, because of Eradication Day, some sort of protective force field around the palace, if you want to say, or facility goes up. So Raffi has to work on trying to get that down, and so does Dr. Girardi. So that way Rios can transport everybody on board the ship. So the Eradication Day ceremony begins with this mob of crowd chanting "kill, kill, kill," and Picard, Picard, Picard. Picard obviously tries stalling the situation because he knows they need the Queen. So he raises his arm up at one point, he raises his pistol up to get the crowd going, and then when he's aiming the phaser at the Borg Queen, the crowd realizes something's not right here, and so does the magistrate. So Picard starts to fire on everybody, because he said to 7 to 9 they're probably going to have to fight their way out. And at the end, Girardi's able to help bring the codes down. Rios transports everybody up to the La Sirena. They fill Rios in. Dr. Girardi plugs the Borg Queen into the ship. But as they're getting ready to leave Earth, the magistrate is able to transport on board with security forces and holds everybody at gunpoint and talks to Picard about how he'll be known as a traitor for trying to steal the Borg Queen. So that's pretty much where the episode leaves off. So basically, with episode 1 and with episode 2, they were each separate little episodes that are leading into a bigger story. So we had the regular standard 25th century in episode 1, which was not in episode 2. In episode 2, we saw the authoritarian regime, which we're probably not going to see much more of, except for a tiny little bit in episode 3 would be my guess, until they transport into the past. So the big bulk of the story is actually going to be in the past, in 2024. All right, so those are basically, that's why a lot of my key points aren't going to really focus on the Confederation itself, because it was just a stepping stone, a stepping block to going into the rest of the season. So one key point, a lot of my key points are basically about Q and the way he's been behaving. Q stated to Picard that this event is not a lesson for Picard, but that he owes some sort of penance. Okay, what does that mean? What did Picard do that some sort of penance needs to be completed at this point? Obviously, we're going to find that out more as the season goes on. Is it something that maybe Q is misunderstanding that he feels Picard did that he owes some sort of penance for? I don't know. Knowing Q, it could be anything. Q also said that he did not create this reality, that it's Picard's actions that did. So we know that they have to go back to Los Angeles 2024, but what is it that Picard actually did? And the Queen said that it was a small change, a very quick minor change. So I'm very curious to see what that change actually is, because for a tiny little change to lead from the Federation to the Co-Federation, I don't know how tiny of a change that could be. I mean, if you would eliminate somebody that would lead to that, that to me is a big change. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, even if you eliminated and killed somebody and it made that big of a change, it was bigger than we actually thought it was. Let's see, so this episode also really is kind of like a reworked Yesterday's Enterprise. And actually Yesterday's Enterprise was even mentioned by Q, by title, just in a very sly kind of way, when Picard was asking what went down. So think about it. In Yesterday's Enterprise, it was one single event that changed the timeline. So you had the Enterprise C come through the rift, which made it that it disappeared and did not fight the Romulans, and then it went from a peaceful Federation to a Federation at war with the Klingons. And they had to fix and restore that little nugget of what happened to change all of history back into the way it needed to be. Also, if you think about it, the Borg Queen is functioning in the Guinan role. In Yesterday's Enterprise, Guinan was able to tell differences in timelines. They never really explained that. They just said that, Data said that perhaps her species has some ability that goes beyond linear time. Some people have suggested that maybe it's the fact that she has an echo of herself in the Nexus that kind of that happened. But now it's the Borg Queen, now that she has a transdimensional awareness, that she can actually do this now. One thing that Q said Picard will have when they go into the past is he's going to have somebody helping him in addition to his crew. The Borg Queen said that there's a person there called the Watcher. So we don't know who this Watcher is, what kind of role this Watcher plays in this whole convoluted story that we're getting ready to go into. So we'll see how that plays into the whole thing. And it's kind of interesting, again, because Q said that this isn't any lesson that he's trying to teach him, but yet he's giving him help to figure out what happened to time. Not just with the crew, but with the Watcher as well. So it's kind of interesting in that regard. Also, I think the key point is about the Borg Queen helping with the time travel. That kind of brings a little bit into play with First Contact as well, because the Borg Queen actually, and the Borg were able to open up a conduit for them to go into 21st century Earth. So it makes sense that they would use this Borg Queen to go back into the past. So some of the likes that I like about this episode, so the Borg Queen, I think she was played to perfection. I love this Anne Wershing, bringing a new kind of spin onto the Borg Queen. The makeup I was also very much impressed with. I've said in the past that I don't like that they've updated a lot of the makeup in Discovery. I don't like what they did with the Klingons. I don't like what they did with the Andorians. I don't think there was any need to really change them up the way they did. But this time with the Borg Queen, it made a little bit of sense. I always wondered why the First Contact Borg Queen and then the Borg Queen in Voyager looked exactly the same in terms of the makeup. You would think that they'd be a little different based on each queen. Well, this one pretty much looks exactly the same. There's just more detail. The tubes that are connected to her are bigger, more detailed. Looks like there are more implants in different places that are showing than they showed previously before. So I have no problem with that upgrade in the makeup, because that makes sense that there would be little differences among all the different queens. I also love that we learn that she has trans-dimensional awareness. Anytime we learn something new about a villain or an original series original character or legacy character, that's always fun to have that little nugget be explored. The other thing I liked about the episode was obviously the Hall of Skulls that were in Picard's war room. Nice little nods back to Star Trek history. I think they did a really nice job. I think people were kind of surprised that there were apparently bones in the Ferengi ears. I can't explain it. It is what it is. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Really, I think they probably just did that so people knew that it was a Ferengi. I'm not going to rip on that. The episode also had a lot of really great human elements into it. I really loved watching the interactions between Raffi and Elnor. Raffi really has taken Elnor under her wing to be able to kind of not motivate him, but to kind of mentor him is more of the word I'm looking for. But also, maybe to some degree, she's seeing him as kind of a replacement for her own son that she alienated with her past drug and alcohol addictions. And think of it, her son is actually married to a Romulan, and her grandchild is supposed to be half Romulan. So there could be some little tie connection into Elnor in that way. But their scenes together were wonderful. The nice scenes between Raffi and Seven, it was very brief when they were talking about 7 and 9 being married to the magistrate. Couple little jabs back and forth from Raffi about how, oh, now you have the ability to make commitments, your commitment issues seem to be over. It's going to be interesting watching their relationship grow and see how that goes throughout the season. See if maybe Seven actually does kind of stabilize and settle down more with Raffi and build a life more with her rather than her being out with the Fenris Rangers. I also like the interactions with Girardi and Rios. I've liked the two of them together in season 1. I like watching them being that couple that no matter what has to bicker. Dr. Girardi always seems to run her mouth and always has something to say, and even Rios is like, we're doing this right now. But it shows the vulnerability that Girardi has had in the relationships. She may have self-sabotaged her relationship with Rios because she's, like the Borg Queen said, she's always felt unbelonging. And even Rios made the comment that she seems to be able to be intimate with anybody else or open up except for with human beings. And that kind of came up with showing Spot 73, her electronic cat friend that Patton Oswalt actually voiced, and he did a good job, by the way, with that. Also, some other callbacks that I really enjoyed. Sisko is apparently alive and well with the Confederation. He's a general on another front, so it was cool to hear Sisko be brought back up. Also, if you look very clearly when 7 and 9 is looking up Colonel Rios, you can see that Vulcan is also called Navarre, in parentheses, as a little nod to Star Trek Discovery during the 32nd century. That's the name of Vulcan. And I just spoke about Spot 73. I also really like the feel of the Confederation of Earth. I'll be honest with you, when I was watching this episode, I was pretty spooked throughout the whole thing. The creators and the writers did an amazing job bringing the Confederation to Earth and making it actually feel real. It felt like a dystopian future, some kind of movie that you would see. It brought back, it had that much emotion and power to it, especially the crowd chanting "Kill" and Picard and smiling and laughing about it. It creeped me out. So when somebody can actually make you feel a certain way and jog up feelings and emotions inside of you, you know they've done a really good job. And I think that they did a great job with the whole Confederation part of the episode. I can't go away without saying anything good about the actor who played the magistrate, John Briones. Wonderful job. He did a really good job showing how much he does have affection for Annika, but also that he was becoming very, very suspicious of her because of the way she was acting in front of everybody else. And the fact that he basically turned on her at the end of the episode. He didn't really so much address her, he addressed Picard. But you can see that there's contempt for her, and maybe even some confusion on the fact that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's acting crazy. She's betraying the Confederation, and she's aiding and kidnapping the Borg Queen. So we'll see how that gets resolved in episode 3. Some questions I have getting ready to go into episode 3. So what was it the key event that changed in 2024, and to what degree? Like I said, I guess depending on what it actually is it really a small thing or is it really a big thing? All we could say probably is that it's just one event. So it could have been bigger than the Queen is actually saying. Who is the Watcher, and how is this going to play into the events of this timeline and the events of the rest of the season? What is happening with Q? Does Q have the ability to get physically and mentally ill? I'm not really certain. We've never really seen a whole lot about it. I mean, we saw Quinn from second season of Voyager, Death Wish, and he didn't seem like your typical Q that we've known, where they're testing humanity and causing problems. But we also know that the Q continuum itself wasn't fully doing that. We found that in Deja Q, in Next Generation's third season, that Q had actually lost his powers as punishment for the way he had treated others. So maybe not all of the Q are dark as the Q that we've always known. So is he really ill in some way? Is he just deranged to some degree based on certain experiences? I'm also wondering why Q waited 30 years to have this challenging moment with Picard. I mean, if you think about it, the way the episodes have been pretty much spelled out, it's been about 30 years since All Good Things. And between that and this episode. So why did Q wait 30 Earth years to bring this penance on to Picard? Again, is it tied into this illness that Picard is suspecting is going on with Q? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to find out. Just another question is, Soji is the only character who didn't get transported from the standard timeline to this alternate reality, unless she's somewhere else and we just haven't seen her yet. But if Soji is going to be in this season, what role is she going to play as the season goes on? Also, there was a brief, we didn't see this person, but there was a hologram at the beginning of the Eradication Day Ceremony outside the building of somebody who sounded like Brent Spiner. And there was only one line that was said. It says, "A safe galaxy is a human galaxy." So when I was doing some research and I looked up the write-up on this on Memory Alpha, they said that that was a character named Adam Song. Now, it was already established that there was going to be, Brent Spiner was going to be in Season 2 and he was going to be playing another Song ancestor. We saw that in the trailer for the season. So I'm curious to see what role Adam Song possibly has played in a lot of this as well. I'm hoping that we'll see him in the next episode. We know we will see him because there was a scene in the trailer with Q with Adam Song, some sort of little vial or something with blue in it. So there is going to be some sort of connection between the two of them. Also, I want to know, will the Borg Queen play any other further role in this season? As of right now, if they end up defeating the Magistrate and his soldiers and the La Sirena goes back in time, they're going to have the Borg Queen with them. So is something going to happen to the Borg Queen that kind of writes her out of the story? Or is the Borg Queen actually going to play some sort of role in the 2024 stuff moving forward? So overall, in conclusion of this, I think this was another solid episode. It reminded me a lot of times where Star Trek has gone back into the past to repair the timeline, or like First Contact, or the episodes with the Bell Riots, which ironically also take place in 2024. So there's fan talk that maybe there's going to be some connection with the Bell Riots and Cisco involved in this storyline. I don't know. We'll just wait and see what happens. But I think it was a really great episode. Definitely felt like Star Trek in terms of having to figure out, okay, we got to go back in time, we got to repair this. So it's a typical Star Trek story, but it's just got a new flavor to it, and they did a really good job with the emotionality of the totalitarian Confederation of Earth. So that's basically it. I would like to know what your thoughts are about Episode 2 of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Penance. Please feel free to put comments down below. You can follow the show. Go on to YouTube, type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat in the search engine, and it'll take you to my channel. You can also follow the show on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. You can also follow the show on Twitter at PGH Trek Chat. I'm looking forward to the next episode, and until then, may Yins live long and prosper.